morning everybody. I'll try and start on time. I know this obviously straight after the tea break, so everybody's having a cup of tea and going in, so just let people come flood in. But we may as well make a start. We're going to really go through introductions. Welcome, and thanks for coming to the presentation today. This presentation centres around a case study that is a current ongoing transformation project for a project controls and cost management system at Dublin Airport. The presentation today will go through and introduce Dublin Airport Authority and how they manage budgets and the programmes they have to deliver, and also the project that we're implementing and where it started, where we are now and where we're going. Presenting today is Alan Duffy, for the Head of Project Controls for AMD within Dublin Airport, and Alan, I'll leave Alan to explain about Dublin Airport and introduce himself in a minute. And myself, I work for RPCuk, my name's Dave Hurren, and I'm working with the Dublin Airport team as part of the delivery in this transformation project. So as usual, a little bit about the company, one of the companies involved, RPC. We're an Oracle partner, platinum partner, specialist within the Oracle products. Been around for over 25 years or so now, and we focus on technology and project management office skills, centering really on the Oracle project management office software around the Primavera product set. As I mentioned, we're a platinum partner and deploy solutions all over the globe for small and large global corporations. So, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Alan to continue the presentation.
Hi everyone, as Dave said, my name is Alan Duffy and I'm the Head of Project Controls in Dublin Airport. Thanks for coming today to see us. I'm a chartered quantity surveyor and I've worked with the DA for the last 5 years. I work for AMD in Dublin Airport and we're the asset management and development team. So we're responsible for the delivery of all our capital projects. So just to give you, I suppose, an idea of Dublin Airport and what we're about. DA is the holding company for Dublin Airport, Orient International, Cork Airport and DA International. I will talk a bit more about Dublin Airport in numbers and what we've coming up, because I suppose that's the important bit for me. But just to mention that Cork Airport is the second airport in the DA family, and it consists of one terminal where we serve 48 destinations and handle approximately 2.4 million passengers. ARI, or Orient International, is DA's retail arm with airport shopping in Ireland, mainland Europe, the Middle East, Central Asia and North America. Altogether these operations manage a turnover of €1 billion, and DA International is a body offering terminal operational solutions, specialist consultancy services and tailored training aimed at the international airport owners and operators. So just a little bit on DA and Dublin Airport in particular. So we fly to over 180 destinations. We are the European gateway to the US with all-day pre-clearance. We have 44 airlines operating out of Dublin Airport, and that will rise next year, we believe. We have 2,400 flights per week. We had 31 million passengers in 2018, and as I'll talk about in the next slide, that's steadily increasing all the time. So just a little bit more on our busiest day in Dublin Airport last year. We had 116,000 people through the door in June 2018. 61% of those people would go through Terminal 1 and 39% would go through T2. So there's a reasonable split there. As I said, we had 31.5 million passengers last year, but since 2014, annual passenger numbers in Dublin Airport have increased by 45%, from 21.7 to 31.5 million, making it one of the fastest growing airports in Europe during that period. So all in all, that means that we basically have a capital investment programme for Ireland, which is Ireland's largest now coming up. The surge of growth, we are at capacity, to be honest. We've got all the low-hanging fruit with regard to, I suppose, slotting in stands where we can and extensions to terminal or to piers. So now we need to, I suppose, invest heavily. From 2005 to 2009, we invested €2 billion. We built Terminal 2. At the time, the airlines told us we were foolish, we were coming into a recession and that we were meant to do it. It turned out that we really needed it, given that it's handling now 40% of our traffic. After the downturn, and it was, I'm sure you're aware, there was a banking crash in Ireland, a recession hit and passenger numbers dropped through the floor, and we invested about 40 million a year. Now, that was probably foolish because if you looked at the tender price index, it also dropped through the floor, so contractors were doing all they could to keep their heads afloat, and we should have really made hay when the sun shone there and invested, but we didn't because, again, we are constrained. We're a regulated entity and we work within tight parameters. We have two main stakeholders, two of the largest airlines being Aer Lingus and Ryanair, and along with the regulator they have a say on how and what we do in our terminal or in our campus. After 2014, again, we had growth and we should have increased our capital spend again. We started to spend approximately 100 million a year over a 5-year period. Again, not enough because, as I said, we're at capacity now, and we basically have hamstrung ourselves into a position where we need to deliver more stands, or we need to deliver more piers, but we can't, I suppose, offer up any space to builders to improve constructability. So operations are saying on one hand, no, we can't release anything to you, and we're saying on the other hand, we need it. So we've left ourselves in a difficult position there. But as I said, we are heading into Ireland's biggest capital investment programme. So for us, we need to look now, I suppose, at the positives, and we did some things very well, and if you look to the top of the photo there, you'll see the new northern runway that we're constructing, and it is due to finish in the latter end of 21. It's going very, very well from a construction point of view, and I suppose we did get great value from the market in the building of that runway. It's, all in all, the sanction for, or the outturn cost we envisage will be below 300 million euro for a full-length runway. So we're quite pleased with that. In addition, now we're going to focus on the east and north and south of the campus. So there's a lot of building work to go on within the piers and terminals. There's a new Pier 5 to go on off Terminal 2 alongside Pier 4. There's a lot of stand development and airfield work included in that as well. To the north, where Ryanair are housed, we're going to build a modular extension to the back end of T1 or Pier 1. That brings us to 40 million passengers per year with the runway and with the work to the east and the south and the north. However, we know from our master plan and we know from passenger numbers that 40 million will probably only get us to 2024, 2025. We need to start thinking about 25 to 29. So we are going to have to build the west of our runway in 1634. So if you think to the left of the screen here, all of the crosswind runway that joins the northern runway and the southern runway together. So everything to the left of that at the minute is greenfield, and the DAA in its wisdom in the 70s purchased all the land for the northern runway and that area where we will go west. So the next phase, even though 2020 to 2024 is, I'll go through the detail of the figures, but it's about a 2 billion plan. The next phase is just as exciting because we believe going west is going to be significantly greater. So here's a little bit on the numbers around those programs of work. So in the South Apron, which is what you could call it's Aer Lingus' hub. Aer Lingus operate out of T2 and they operate predominantly out of Pier 4 and a little bit out of Pier 3. We're going to build a new Pier 5, a new stand development, and increase the size of our custom border protection area for USB clearance because it's actually at capacity as we speak. So the plan is to spend approximately 450 million in that area. As I said, Ryanair are eyes in the north, so there'll be a 200 million spend there for stand development. Stand development is critical as we are really struggling on the stand capacities. And we have 600 million in capital maintenance, which is, I suppose, typical. Things need to be changed on a regular basis in the airport, given the high numbers coming through it. In the airfield, we have 200 million euro to spend, and in piers and terminals, we have 250 million to spend. Now, in addition to that, we have the programme for airport campus enhancement, which is not part of the next step, but we are just beginning those works, and it's 270 million. And also, we are upgrading from standard 2 to 3 on our whole baggage screening system as per the EU directive, so that's another 200 million spend that we have coming up. These are just some of the quantities and I suppose the different variations and types of work we end up having to do in the airport. Unfortunately, it's not just as simple for us as having to build a terminal or something like that. So we have new roads and car parks, airfield apron, new buildings, building refurbishments, huge amounts of steel going in. Attenuation is a major issue for us due to pollution control, new air bridges and apron refurbishment. All of that coupled with what I would say is a fairly heated market in Ireland and a limited pool of contractors leaves us with a lot of difficulties when it comes to getting what the business would call value for money. They feel that costs in an airport environment are extortionately high. Now, we expect them to be high due to, I suppose, security issues and access and operations being, I suppose, overprotective of their environment, but with the combination of all the building work that we need to do and at such a volume, because we've pushed and pushed out till now, we're left with, I suppose, a limited pool in Ireland. So from consultants through to contractors, we're hoping that the increase in capital spend will, I suppose, attract new talent and new contractors and consultants. As you can see, this is Ryanair's area up in the north, so stand development and do circles are an extension of Terminal 1 and the new mod building. In piers and terminals, we have a lot of work in the HBS, and then we have your typical retail development, which is ongoing along with fire safety systems, LSS, everything there. This is Aer Lingus' end down in the south, so a new pier, new stand development, new general services area. And then this is airfield and civils. But as you can see, all of this is predominantly airside, so it's a very difficult environment to work in. So, with all of that, we know we have major challenges. We're moving from 32 million to approximately 38, 39, 40 million over the next 5 years. We have increased transfer passengers, and that brings its own difficulties because unlike some of the other bigger airports, transfer passengers is not something that Dublin Airport would have been used to. It was a tiny percentage of our passenger numbers, so that brings its own issues. I suppose from a construction point of view, we have manual and disjointed systems in the airport. Our plan, I suppose, to help us there is we're going to have our SIP 20 to 24, which is 140 construction projects, 1.7 billion in spend, along with, as I said, another 500 to 600 million on HBS and PACE. When you start to bring stands and you bring capacity on board, the business then feel, I suppose, a little relief in the pressure, and it allows operations then to be a little bit more flexible with us as a development team. So if we can start to bring capacity on board, we believe that it will, I suppose, alleviate things for us somewhat. So, the gap in the capacity to deliver. We need to engage with external consultants, and we are at the minute, and overhaul our manual processes and streamline work practices whilst compiling contemporaneous records and auditable records. We are a heavily audited department within Dublin Airport. Internal audit take particular interest in the asset management and development team, given the amount of contractors that we would have in and consultants that we would have in, and we have a large body of staff compared to, I suppose, other departments in the airport. We have 150 staff approximately, which for a development team in an airport is probably larger than normal. A lot of other airports may operate under the environment that we're an airport, we take passengers in and we fly them out. We're not a development team, but Dublin Airport do like to have some semblance of a development team there, and then we would hope that in the future we'll move to the approach where we'll bring in an integrated delivery partner to work alongside us to assist in such a huge increase in spend for us. With regard to, I suppose, being ready for an audit and having the right records in place, we believe that cost management is key here. Our business, they do expect now from us a cost management system where we have confidence in the data. Now, at the minute, we are using spreadsheets and we have confidence in the data, but if a couple of people move on or if things change at all, we find that that confidence is eroded, and I will give you a particular example now with regard to T2 in a few moments. One thing we did was when we looked at several different products, we ended up choosing Unifier as the best solution for Dublin Airport. We use Oracle contracts and procurement, we use Oracle e-business suite for our finances, we use Primavera. Now that's not the only reason we chose it, but it was a starting point, but we did visit the other vendors as well, and we selected it, and as David will show you, we're progressing well on the implementation, and we believe what we like about it is it's very configurable, and it's adaptable to change, and it's versatile enough to be adopted by other departments. So when we initially brought it in and we spoke to finance were like, nothing to do with us, we have e-business, but now they're starting to see the benefits of it, that it's not just an ERP tool, it is all about project costing, and some people in finance are moving now to say it is quite useful, so we're looking forward to it going live. Another thing we liked about it was when we spoke with RPC and with Dave and with Oracle, and they didn't really just sell us a box off the shelf. They said, you need to give us resources now for the guts of a full year. And we have, and we feel that's paying off for us in that we have Gary McGrain now, and Gary works full-time on the project, and he will be our, I suppose, super user at the end of it all, so that we're not constantly relying on our friends in RPC. There were many reasons for implementation, but when I've been coming to the Expo now for 3 or 4 years, and in 2017 I attended a session that David was presenting on. I didn't know David from Adam, but he was talking about integration of systems, and now look, I'm not green enough to think that you get full integration, and you definitely don't get full integration in Dublin Airport, because with the stakeholders involved, it's like a spider's web. A&D are just one part of Dublin Airport, and we're trying to work on all the other pieces. So I don't know if we'll ever get full integration, but a lot of what he said did resonate with me, and to the point where I nearly found it amusing. A couple of things he said were project data coming from everywhere, coming from all over the place, spreadsheets with broken macros, dozens, if not hundreds of versions of them, and zero confidence in the data, and a complete lack of collaboration. And that is how it was for me when I joined the DA in 2015. I could not trust any data. I would go to our online APEX system, and we have a CAD, it's a computer, our capital approval document, and it would tell me the sanction that was available for a project, sanction being our budget. I would then go to a cost report that someone had produced, and it was different. I would then go into the Oracle e-business piece, and it was different. There was no, I suppose, single source of truth for us. So whilst for a lot of you, that's basic and you have that already, we didn't, and it was really important to us that we, I suppose, started at the bottom and worked our way up. But one of the things that happened in the DA, and they were fairly annoyed about it as a company, that during our largest capital investment program ever in 2005 to 2009, we spent up on €2 billion, and it was huge for us. I wasn't part of the team, but I came in later, and the DA at the time, they did the integration piece. They did it on spreadsheets, and it worked somewhat well. But when the SIP finished and passenger numbers, I suppose, went through the floor, and we had a banking crash, and the DA decided we're not spending any more money, something happened. All of this integration and these spreadsheets, they seemed to vanish, disappear, they got deleted, they were corrupted. You had 10 versions. If you went to the spreadsheets to try and find out what the cost was of our flagship project, which was T2, you would get 10 different versions. And to this day, you might as well go to Google and type in the cost of T2 and you might get a similar answer, because nobody took care of the data after the work finished. They just let it rot in a folder structure, and then somebody came in and changed this and manipulated that, and maybe someone in finance had a report to do and they decided, well, we don't want to show that, so we'll just take it down a little bit or move it up a bit. So all of the data, I suppose, was corrupted by the end of it. So now we're implementing a new target operating model. We have Turner and Townsend in helping us there, and along with that, we believe Unifier is going to help deliver the change to enforce governance. Governance is really important in Dublin Airport, as it is with any company. We want visibility and we want process alignment, and we believe with all of this we'll achieve efficiency and transparency and enable a good forward-looking plan, rather than all of my team spending way too much time developing cost reports. We had a slide that Dave made me take down, but it showed the as-is, but there were that many as-is steps, you couldn't actually show it because you wouldn't be able to read it. So the 2B is somewhat, it's reduced significantly. We have expectations as a business from the product that we're procuring, and we expect it to be able to manage our 2020 SIP budget and costs in one system with a live program and portfolio view of the costs and a full drill down into the €2 billion. Like anything, in particular in Dublin Airport, we know that moving to this new system has its challenges, but we did offer one little, I suppose, piece to RPC and Oracle that we're shovel ready now in January 2020. That's a brand new SIP for us. We've managed to 15 to 19 SIP through Excel, and we've, in fairness, the team have managed it well, but we're not going to try and migrate all of that data into Unifier. It is just too challenging, so we're trying to come up with ways to ensure we protect the information from 15 to 19 and start on the right foot in 2020 going forward. I'm hoping that we will come up with a way to do that, but if we don't, we will eventually migrate the data because we don't want to lose that information. But at the minute to go live, we believe this is the best way to go. So, just on the process and governance. So, some of the things we wanted from it, we wanted a single source of truth, control of information by business processes, and no information can be entered or amended without separate approvals, because what was happening was the PM might have a cost report, the QS would have a cost report, someone in finance would have their own cost report. So we wanted something where it started in Unifier and worked its way out. And it started with project controls, and project controls are over the governance side of things in Dublin Airport. We wanted approximate steps in our cost control to begin with detailed estimates, budget approval, all within Unifier, and these steps involved the project cost broken down in detail using the CBS structure based on the BCIS standard elements. We have work package contracts loaded into Unifier and costs assigned to the CBS nodes as required. And the CBS node can hold data from multiple projects. Early warnings and compensation events are subject to their own processes, and it is a Dublin Airport requirement that changes are preceded by an EWN, typical of any organisation, I'm sure. Separate processes encourage the use of EWNs, as they will have no impact on any data within the project unless accepted and progressed as a change. P6 and Oracle data will be incorporated automatically as a result of the integration exercise. Examples of the benefits to cost management include direct links between costs in Unifier and monies paid using the Oracle e-business suite. Further enhancements include the ability to handle transactions on foreign currencies, which is a popular one for us in Ireland, without any additional demand on either Oracle or Unifier administrators. Payments and detailed cost breakdowns may be received directly from contractors and evaluated within the system. Once approved, the Oracle e-business suite is notified of the payment due and final payment recorded in Unifier after the payment is made. So we've got a good integration between e-business, Unifier and P6. Project cost reporting is a key deliverable of Unifier and tailored to reflect the current format and time saving, up to date and accurate, and can be amended in line with evolving requirements. I'll talk a little bit more about the reporting and that at the end. Our dashboards, there's strong visuals and there's good snapshot management reports, user task reminders, it's configurable to any combination of the information and requirements in Unifier. I suppose the beauty of having a super user is that if we want to change something, we can. He's worked with Dave now constantly over the last 8-9 months, and he's come on really well on this. And again, another one, as I said earlier, is really important to us, the audit trail. So restricted access and business processes ensure the integrity of the information. We can give our internal audit team access to it. We in project controls have nothing to hide, so we're happy to give them full access and they can go and troll through it and come back to us with whatever findings they have. Yeah.
So as I was already saying, what we did, we started off with the scoping study, an investigation of what was going to be needed. Typical story really. There's a need to find what the requirements are, understand what they are, help the figure out what the right way forward is. And then from that we ended up with a clear roadmap or path to that environment, that integrated environment. And from a technical point of view, it made it much simpler to then break it down into smaller steps. But not only that, it made it easier for Dublin Airport in order to actually deploy these solutions. The main reason for that is around the amount of business change, and Alan will testify, is a huge business change for the team at Dublin Airport Authority. And going from a massive complication of many spreadsheets into a singular, trusted, governed and ruled system. Big change. So we plotted out a route to get to that point. As part of that, we then went back in, as part of the actual business case development, following on from the original study, we then back and revisited those steps. And the reason why was because all projects change and all deliveries change, and we didn't really know exactly until we did the business case the right way to implement it. So then what happened was we then redefined those individual packages, and then Dublin as a team decided to not go the entire stretch of the way, all the way to the end of that roadmap, but pick a logical place to stop at, gather momentum and then move forward from that point. And that then meant that we went back and redefined the actual deployments into smaller configuration sprints, which we can see here. The key point is that each individual sprint was enabled to contain sufficient information and functionality to provide a return, because there's no point doing these projects if you don't get a return. But the benefit of using Unifier, as Alan's rightly said, is that because you can configure this and layer it on top of each other and different deployments on top of each other, it means it's always extendable. So in the first sprint, it was really around setting up the actual environment itself, and then looking at how projects are actually implemented, i.e. how are they initiated and how are they approved and accepted within the system. Previously that was many spreadsheets and a couple of Apex applications and the odd spreadsheet thrown in for good measure. And now all of that now is inside of one single environment through a controlled workflow and process with specific data fields that are required to stop people going backwards and forwards with emails and so on, emailing the same spreadsheet around to different people to get the right information. Included in that sprint was not only initiation, but also things like the way of storing project documentation for the feasibility studies and so on, and actually launching those feasibility studies within the control tool to give Dublin Airport the actual governance that the auditors said they needed and must have. The second sprint moved on from that and was around estimation, starting to put money back into the actual the project itself. How much is it going to cost? But one of the benefits, as Alan rightly said, with Unifier is it allowed Dublin Airport not to have to move lock, stock and barrel from every existing system all into Unifier in one go. What it allowed them to do was continue to use the estimation tool that they have already implemented and drop that information into Unifier to then start building this one source of information. On top of the actual estimations, there was budget definition, and then we launched into actually how work packages are defined. Now, work packages are terms used in Dublin to actually manage a contract, and it paved the way to then further sprints going forward and actually to implement contract management. Moving on, we had the third sprint was around change. We've got our budget set up, so we thought the best thing to do then is to layer the change capability in, moving away again from emails and spreadsheets and more emails into this single environment whereby every single individual record or transaction was impacting on the others. But that included two types of change. One type of change, which is an internal budget change within Dublin Airport, moving budgets around the individual project, and also external changes which affect the individual contracts and work packages that have been set up at the outset. Again, layering on from sprint 1 and 2. Sprint 4 was around the actual, it was the biggest sprint actually, it's the biggest challenge for us to date, and it's around cost management. And in reality, sprint 4 is where everything comes together. So in sprint 4, we're pulling all of the previous configuration sprints together into a single place and tying it all back together again. And that really sort of summarised what Sprint 4 was about. Not only was it cost management, but estimations, forecasting, performance measurements, and so on, as you would imagine. The fifth sprint is really, the way we defined this was really around now being able to connect all of that good cost and quality cost information to the schedule, to return an integrated cost and schedule approach. Amongst other things, but mainly it was around that. That will involve a P6 deployment and will also allow the DEA to actually manage their resources as well across the actual environment. The sixth sprint starts to wind down in regards to the content of the requirements and is focused really on risk management. And by layering it in this way, we'll be able to get the actual integrated cost and schedule to connect to the risk, and now we have integrated cost, schedule and risk together. And then the final sprint that was defined is really around that auditing findings, which is specifically to enable that projects are closed in the right way. But also, not only that the project cost, once it's completed, is able to be defined and allocated to the individual asset that the project created and actually handed over from the project completion to the asset management system and people to actually continue that life cycle of that asset. Because everybody knows, especially at Dublin, we create a new asset. It doesn't just stop at the end of the project. We don't just chuck the data out at the end. Well, actually, a lot of people do. But the point is, and the benefit of this is it's paving the way to not do that and actually start coming up and paving the way to what some people call a data mirror or a data definition of the actual physical asset delivered. I'm going to skip past these two really just to focus on the end. And really the point I want to make on this here is that Dublin Airport have taken a real big step forward for technically. Every application they previously used before we really started was all on-premise, all deployed inside their own firewalls. Big step for them is to move away from that, and actually Unifier is one of the first cloud environments that they actually implemented. They now have gone on to deploy other cloud applications. So where are we to date? So we're at Sprint 4. This is a really stressful month for me because we're going live at the end of it. So this couldn't be in front more better timing. Again, we go live at the end of this month. We've got a schedule of migration, as Alan mentioned, to migrate those collection of new projects into the new environment. And the real good thing for me, being part of the team delivering this solution, is that it'll be one of the first times that the team at Dublin will have an integrated environment whereby all the data is actually controlled and audited, where before it wasn't able to do that. The other thing that's really good for me is that we'll be able to drill down into the costs in a structured way because one of the biggest challenges for us was that we weren't allowed to change the ERP tool, and the way the costs were defined in the ERP tool was by vendor. However, the way that the costs are delivered and actually spent is by the scope of the project, using a very industry standard breakdown structure. So one of the biggest challenges was trying to make them connect together, and we've achieved that. The other challenge, as Alan mentioned, is that the overall sanction budget amount within the ERP application is one single value. But within the project, to deliver the project, it needs to be broken down by that standard structure. And again, we've been able to actually meet that challenge as well, all because of the great selection, in my opinion, that Alan and his team made by selecting the Primavera product set, specifically Unifier.
Okay, look at folks, I'm just going to wrap up here, but ultimately what we wanted from Unifier was that we had confidence in our data, and since then we've been able to start to build a reporting tool that I suppose we can start to share information, not just at a project level or program level, portfolio level, but exec level. So we've built ourselves now a tool that takes data that will take data from Unifier, which is P6 and has our ERP data as well. We also have our safety data, risk, we have asset care data. So as part of infrastructure, A&D is part of the infrastructure department, so we need to report generally on that. So I suppose what we've done is we've started to build a tool now that is basically able to supply the right information to the airport, showing real value, and the data is governed, it's trusted, and as you can see, we took someone on that basically is wonderful at writing code and whatnot, but we wouldn't have ever done that without knowing that we had confidence in the data, because shiny reports are no good unless the data is there. So these are some of the things we're producing. Just, schedule status, budget variance, risk status, safety status, cash flow, and it's only going to, I suppose, expand and improve for us, given that we now feel we're entering, I suppose, a sphere of confidence with regard to what data we have. So thank you very much.